We have to stop meeting like this. Where did you come from this time? Welcome back to Cely Los, Out of Frame.
I'm Cely.
And I'm Los.
One couple, one couch, and our latest hyperfixation.
We're back to talk more from, if you follow our YouTube channel, you might have seen that we did a reaction and review for the first episode right after watching it. In today's episode, we're going to do a quick recap of episode 1 and talk what our fellow From fans are saying on Reddit.
Yeah, bring on the Chisme. You know I love diving into Reddit. You all pick up on those details that are out of frame, and you come with the receipts. But before we jump in, we've let this episode marinate a bit. Los, I would love to hear what you think about the episode overall. Did the premiere deliver for you?
As the kickoff to a new season, I thought the episode itself had some really poignant scenes, really good scenes, and really that pushed along the narrative for the show. Overall quality of episode, have some issues. Thought the script writing was a little simplistic. It didn't feel like a premiere episode, like for a standout marquee product that's on mgmplus. It just felt like it was lacking a little bit. Some of the acting, some of the deliveries, I'm hoping as the season progresses will get better. And but yeah, all in all, it was good in a sense of theory development, pushing on the storyline, pushing the narrative. Just other things could have been done a little bit better.
A lot of Redditors agree with you, actually. I did see quite a few speaking on the storyline and that it just didn't deliver in the way that they expected for episode 1. So that's good. All right, well, let's jump into the recap. So as Los opened, right, with the man in yellow saying those mysterious lines, Julie, we have to stop meeting like this. It shows there that it's signifying that Julie has met him in some other timeline. Then he says to Jim, you always tried so hard, which could also mean Jim is reincarnated. And this next part is his favorite part. We then see the priest who sees the tree. And then later we see the man in yellow show up at the new ruins, opening a briefcase and starting to remove his clothes. All right, this here took me to our first Reddit theory that we'll start to discuss on the briefcase. One of the Redditors noticed that the man in yellow's briefcase is the same one that Tabitha found in the tunnels. I don't know if you remember that, Los, but the contents of that briefcase in the tunnels had like a white nightgown. Do you think that that was a nod that like the man in yellow has infiltrated the town before, like in a previous cycle or even in this existing cycle?
That's an interesting take. I mean, I'm sure he has. I'm sure he's infiltrated in previous From Village iterations. Now the question is, and the other question you asked is whether he's done it within this cycle. I think he's probably, the man in yellow has probably done it within Victor's lifespan at least once, one other time. And that's when everybody died. When Victor was a kid, when he comes out of the cellar and everybody in the town is dead. I think by that point, obviously, you would think that the man in yellow had infiltrated, and as he had stated, this is where they tear themselves apart at the end of the episode. So it seems that yes, he's definitely been there before. Obviously, this is a cycle that keeps going, keeps repeating itself, and I think what makes this cycle unique is the second time with one person who's been there for 2 cycles, and that being Victor.
All right, so let's move on. Then we see the scene start to progress where Fatima's in the bed. She tells Ellis and Kenny about the original deal made for immortality. Then Kenny climbs down. He can't find Boyd in the tunnels. He's walking around, stumbling. Boyd finds Kenny first, and then they see Smiley. Smiley says something to Kenny, and then they start to run. Once they come up above to the root cellar, Boyd tells Kenny that Fatima gave birth to Smiley. From there, we pan on over to the colony house, where Christy goes to see Elgin. Donna fills Christy in on what's been happening. We see Clara, blue shirt lady, appear, and then they show in detail Elgin getting stitched up.
Oh, that was a fun watch.
Gory. It was maybe a little too much. There's a theory on Reddit, right? We talked about this Clara girl before in our reaction, but there's a whole post dedicated to her. Clara's a lady in the blue shirt with the bandana who shows up in all important moments, or many important moments, and seemingly does not play an important role, but she's
At
always
least
ever present.
to date. From what we know
Yeah.
of, she doesn't play
Yeah.
an important role, but that things could change.
Right. Yeah, exactly. All the theories were really interesting, and one Redditor even dubbed her Saint Clara, patron of being sus. That one definitely made me chuckle. But there's a whole thread, like I said, questioning why she chooses to wear the same clothes. One Redditor also pointed out that Victor has drawn her
Oh,
before. That was like, yeah, yeah. And they had the receipts. They showed a screenshot in the drawing where it's kind of like a torn drawing and it's in the trailer where he used to hide and she's smiling in the picture and it looks like it was a piece torn potentially. So Victor has said that he only draws so the pictures can remember for him, right? So he doesn't have to remember. And at one point you might remember that like Ethan had drawn like a friendship drawing, I guess, for of him and Victor and tried to give it to him. And Victor was refusing to take it because he said that like, no, drawings are just to remember bad things or something along, or like things that happened that are no longer here. Given that Victor drew Clara at some point, do you think Clara was drawn like during a big event of a previous cycle and somehow Victor has like
yeah.
forgotten
If
who she
Victor is
is?
drawing things that have happened that have negatively have happened to him and the village, and she is featured in one of those drawings, oh my God, yes. And that feeds right into this theory we've been saying that she's an infiltrator. Maybe she is an accomplice to the man in yellow. So, she's just the one that comes in before he comes in to destroy
Mhm.
everything. Maybe she's the recon. She's in there collecting information, and somehow relaying it back to quote unquote the monsters of the man
Mhm.
in yellow. And yeah, I mean that lines up with what we've kind of been saying for a while because she just shows up in every episode or every season and doesn't do much, but is just in the background and for some reason has a speaking role. And that's really interesting to know that that there's pictures that Victor has drawn of her. So
Yeah.
yeah,
What is Victor? I don't know that we've ever seen them interact in a scene together. Like, I don't know if we've seen them be together in a scene. So, I'm not sure how he feels about her. And we don't even know how long she's been there for, right?
I don't think so. No. Going back to kind of
Uh-huh.
Victor and he's trying to remember
Uh-huh.
things. So he doesn't fully remember things. I mean, he was a kid. There's a lot of trauma behind that. There's
Mhm.
probably layers of defenses within his own mind for him not to remember things. Maybe he's blocked her out. That's one of the, I mean, it'll be great. I can't wait to find out more and see how the season develops. Maybe we'll get to know a little bit more about her. And especially now that, what's
Sophia.
the man in yellow's new character's name? The girl? Sophia. I mean, we'll see how they
Ooh,
interact.
I
If
love
there is
that. We
any
got to pay
interaction
attention to
between,
their interaction,
you know,
if any. Yeah.
yeah, if there is anything, yeah. If they feed
Yeah.
it, yeah, if
Yeah.
they give us little
Interesting
tidbits here
stuff.
and there.
All right. So moving on. After all of the commotion at Colony House, we then see Boyd at the sheriff's station counting bullets. He asks Kenny how many people are in town. Kenny says 47. Boyd is contemplating murder suicide, aka, in his point of view, giving
Just
people a
either get
choice.
ripped to shreds or you can decide to just take yourself out or have somebody take you out. So, yeah, that's kind of
Yeah.
the rock in a hard place situation there.
Yeah. So one of the Reddit theories that was super interesting was on the number 47, specifically the numbers 4 and 7. Redditor Eagle Striker has been tracking the numbers 4 and 7
Wow.
across the show. It shows up in multiple settings in like the radio dial. They brought it even down to like the number of letters in Jade's name, which is 4, and Tabitha's name, which is 7, Khatri and book 74 in the Bible. There's multiple times that it shows up in ways that seem inconsequential and other ways that do seem, like they have consequence, like how many villagers are in From. Do you buy this number theory that like the numbers 4 and 7 are important and
I'm
that we should
sure.
be paying attention
And
for
I
them?
mean, if these are the same people that that worked on Lost and were behind Lost. So every,
Mm.
I mean,
What happened in Lost?
everything
I
was a clue. Numbers, especially, were such a big deal. So this could be something really, really important down the line. These are producers that were behind Lost, Easter eggs,
the details.
details, everything into every episode. Yeah, do not be surprised if that comes out as something extremely important for figuring out this place.
Yeah. It should be fun to keep an eye out for. We should make it like a
And
drinking
next time there's
game
a
next time
47.
on Sunday. You see number 47? We take
There
4
you go.
shots.
Oh my god, no. Force.
No. Oh my gosh. All right. So moving on to the recap. After that, we then see a car barrel through the town and slams into the sheriff's house. We see Sophia, the quote unquote daughter, and she gets pulled out from the wreckage. Tabitha said she's going to put a book between the metal of the car and her neck, and that book happens to be the Holy Bible, which, by the way, you might recall, Khatri had said that when he had arrived to town, there were no Bibles. He had to write it from scratch and from memory. So this is the first Holy Bible entering the village. And then from there, an ambulance pulls up. They're able to take out Sophia from the wreckage. They
So
also
what an
take out
interesting
the priest.
choice. Like out of everything that they have potentially available to them in that accident scene, to put the Bible
Mm.
up to her neck and kind of like to block it. That's obviously very deliberate by the writers or the director to put that there. Seen any theories on why they would have used the Bible?
The only one I saw is like that it was to bring down the guard of those around them. Like, oh,
God
these
fearing.
people are holy. Yeah, God fearing. It's in the car, and that's what was available. But one thing that really stood out to me is, as you might recall, Victor seemed to recognize the
Yeah, Victor
situation.
stood back and just observed, didn't say anything, and was just
Yeah.
taking it in. It almost seemed reluctant to move forward. He looked like I've seen this before. I
Mhm.
something's negative or bad's going to happen from this situation, and
Yeah.
yeah, you could tell in his body language something that he's remembering. So
Yeah.
that definitely felt like that was happening to him in that moment. Also, I find it really interesting that the man in yellow would put himself in such a precarious situation with the metal up to his neck, potentially
Yeah.
decapitating him. But to put himself in that situation is kind of what is it more to lower their defenses? Well, everything's
Mhm.
done to like have them trust in him. So
Yes. I think so. I think that was very
show some
deliberate.
level of mortality.
There were so many theories on the Man in Yellow on Reddit, and it was hard to whittle them all down because there were many interesting ones. But one about the Man in Yellow and Victor that I thought interesting was that, like, we haven't yet heard Victor say that he, like, say the words Man in Yellow or that he knows him. I don't think so, at least not that I recall.
Yeah, and the only drawings we've seen of the man in yellow has been from Miranda.
Well, actually,
Or did somebody say?
there was a Redditor that logged in and had the receipts of it. There was a scene where, if I recall correctly, I believe in that scene, Victor was showing the drawing of Jasper to his dad, but behind that drawing was a drawing of the man in yellow. And so that leads us to believe that Victor was drawing the man in yellow. He showed us to his dad, and Redditors think that Victor by the man in yellow, and that they believe that Christopher changed, which is like a word that Victor used, right? That actually the man in yellow killed Christopher and
To
took over,
become.
yeah, and became Christopher. And that's why he quote unquote changed. So I do think Victor knows a lot about the man in yellow. And he can't
Mhm.
remember at this point. Or maybe he actually doesn't know that the man in yellow infiltrated in the past through Christopher. So what do you think of that? Like, does that track for you? Is there anything we've seen on Christopher so far that raises the alarms that he might have been taken over by the man in yellow?
I think from the little bit we've seen of Christopher, to me, I feel like, yes, for Victor as an 9-year-old kid, noticing somebody changing that seems like a far-fetched kind
Mm,
of, I mean, that seems like a more out there theory.
yeah.
Because, like, I mean, if Christopher's in the village and he's starting to see things, he's starting to hear things, get advice from a little creepy boy in white, that's gonna change anybody. And he's going to dive into like what is happening? Like, how can we get out of here? I mean, you got these monsters chasing everybody, killing them, and all of a sudden he's getting help from this apparition this vision that only he can see.
Mhm.
So that will change anybody. Will the man in yellow take over his body or assume his role in the village?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where that one lands. But there are definitely some like far-fetched theories, the manipulation from the From Village entities. She's standoffish. She does not want to engage on anything really, even with Julie or Ethan. Then we see Acosta talking to Boyd about Elgin, telling him what it was interesting. She like called back to what Father Kotri said. I shared this during our reaction too. Acosta says, I don't know what you were before, but this is what you are now. Meanwhile, Kotri had said to him at the end of the last season, decide who you are because that is who you'll be. So that was an interesting parallel there.
Yeah.
Then we see her go to the diner all frustrated because she's got blood on her uniform, and she finally gives in and decides to change out of her clothes, and then Send in the Clowns starts to play in the diner, kind of mocking her.
Yeah. What do you think that means? What do you think that?
Yeah, I think that was the beginning of the next phase of the cycle. Who are the clowns, right?
God, please don't tell me they're going to bring in clowns. Not a fan of creepy clowns.
That would cheapen the series. I really hope they don't. That
Yeah,
was oh my
that would
god.
be wild. All of a sudden, we see like a bunch of Pennywises going
Yeah.
around everywhere. Yeah.
Apparently Stephen King watches this series because he's been giving like his
Really?
theory on it. Yeah.
I love that. I
We should
love
look
that.
into that more.
Hmm.
But yeah, from there, after that scene in the diner, they pan over to Christy talking to Fatima. Boyd comes in. Boyd tells everybody in the room what he saw in the tunnel with Smiley, and that was the rebirth of Smiley. Fatima, rightfully so, flips out, and she reminds everybody that nobody believed her. And then she goes to shower. And then Ellis pulls Boyd aside. He wants to have a one-on-one moment with him. Boyd breaks down in a way we haven't seen before, and he says, I can't do it anymore. Every sacrifice has been in vain. And he breaks down crying. So, on this theme of sacrifice, that one really stuck with me. There was a theory, this is a weird little rabbit hole. So, let's make horror short stories by Robert W. Chambers, which apparently also inspired the Lovecraftian world, right? Which, we enjoy as well.
Oh,
They theorized that Boyd may ultimately have to sacrifice himself to save the town, which was like some parallels to this King in Yellow collection of stories. And they even point in their theory to the fact that Boyd always wears a light yellow shirt, kind of like a subtle visual nod to his destiny being tied to the man in yellow. What do you think about Boyd's
oh.
arc ending in sacrificing himself?
Honestly, it feels a little basic. It feels easy. Will it potentially end up there? Yes. I hope the way they get there is unique and different
Hmm.
because series, to be honest, and obviously I'm hoping everybody gets out. All of our main characters, all of our, people get out. But do I expect sacrifice between now and the end of when it's supposed to
Yeah, I
end?
think season 5 is supposed to be the last one, I believe.
Yeah, I'm sure we're gonna lose like a good amount of the cast, but it's if they do decide to sacrifice Boyd, I hope it's done in a very tasteful manner and hope it's worthy of of the role he's played in this place. You got to sacrifice yourself to get everybody out. If that is the case, then he needs to go out like a G,
Hmm.
like he needs to go out like a king.
Yeah. I That'll be interesting. I think with this theory, which could be really out there, but with this theory, I word sacrifice and how it's showing up in the series.
And would his sacrifice stop the cycle or just free this current cycle?
Mhm.
How would that work if that is the case? These people, the monsters that quote unquote, that sacrificed their children, the Ankui to become immortal. How would Boyd's sacrifice undo that evil that was done? And
Parent sacrificing himself for his child
that's
versus the
not
other
bad.
way around.
That's a good one. And that's actually pretty good. I like that one. And
There's a little bit of balance there, right?
yeah, there is some balance there. Another thing I was thinking of was what if, there's the color situation with what Boyd wears and the Yellow Man. What if Boyd ultimately is the next iteration of the Yellow Man? He becomes the Yellow, but he flips it and some part of him still remains like decent and good. And his sacrifice as being the ultimate baddie frees the energy that's locked up in the village from that evil deed that was done with the parents and the
Mhm.
kids, the evil
Mhm.
presence that's there.
Mhm.
But if his death, his sacrifice at that point frees this place from that energy, from
Mhm.
locking people in. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just
So you're
throwing
combining
something
2
out there.
theories. I kinda like that. Like, it is that he will sacrifice himself and that he becomes the man in yellow, but what happens there is kind of an unknown. Like, does that him becoming the man in yellow continue the cycle? Does it, or does it free people permanently? Yeah, that'll be interesting. All right, we're approaching the end of the episode. In the clinic, we see Sophia praying. She wants to call her mom, and Kenny explains that they're all trapped. When Kenny explains everything to Sophia, she is surprisingly calm. Then they pray together, and after that prayer moment, we see the scene switch over to Tabitha and Julie waiting for Jim. They hear a noise in the kitchen. Things start flying all around the house. Poltergeist activity. The end of the episode finally is Sophia wakes up the priest, explains why she stopped him and how she is the man in yellow. And then they show an unsettling scene of the man in yellow morphing into Sophia. And then she says, "This is my favorite part," which was a callback to the beginning of the episode. She said, "This is when they tear themselves apart." Before we talk about the ending, let's talk about this poltergeist activity because that's new, right?
That is new. We haven't had that happen before.
Yeah.
What is it? What caused it? Why now? Jim's
Right.
dead.
So
So
you had the theory that maybe it's Jim from another plane. I like that theory. Some fans, some Redditors think that the poltergeist activity is Julie trying to warn the family.
as she's
Story walking.
story walking.
Yeah.
Okay.
And maybe because Julie's body is physically there, she can't be seen. Ghost Julie. What do you think of that theory?
I think that kind of harkens to like a little bit of Interstellar,
Mm,
you
okay.
know,
Yeah.
Matthew McConaughey pulling the strings of time and
Mm-hmm.
knocking stuff over in his kid's room.
Yeah.
So
Right. I forgot about that.
yeah, I mean, yeah, now you got to dive into theory relativity and all that other stuff. I don't know,
Yeah.
but I mean, it's plausible. I mean, it's definitely plausible in this world. Similar to my theory of Jim. You know, it's definitely a family
Mhm.
member warning, trying to, I don't know, stir up something. I don't know if it's a warning, but it's definitely stirring up something. But I like something that you also said when we did our reaction video, that maybe it's the village saying, "Oh, you're not safe just because you're in this house, you know, and you have the talisman up. It doesn't mean anything. Like, you know, we can get at you if we really wanted to."
Mhm.
Is it just making it so it's an elevated level of fear again for the villagers?
That's interesting. And you said something that stuck out to me on you're not actually safe. I saw a theory on Reddit again that had said that the talisman is this cycle's iteration of how they quote unquote stayed safe. And they're the good entities in From Village creates a new version of that for each cycle. Their theory is that for this season, the boy in white, or potentially Julie as a story walker, somebody created the talisman and then the cycle was protected that way. They believe that the previous cycle that Victor came in with had no protection, and then that the cycle before that in the cabins, their equivalent of protection was those like creepy statues, and that the boy in white and potentially other good entities in the From Village help each cycle in different ways to keep them safe. So I found that to be interesting. We'll
Hmm.
see how it plays out given this poltergeist activity. If it is Jim or Julie, then potentially it means that the talismans are actually working. If it's not them, then yeah, it's a signal that the safety is not real.
It's just an illusion.
That's
Yeah,
an
it's just an
illusion.
illusion. Yeah.
All
So
right. So now that we've recapped the full episode, we can wrap up. And there were like two big unanswered questions that maybe like you can give like a quick rapid fire point of view on. What does Sophia's takeover mean going forward? And what is Victor going to do with, Sophia and how he interacts with her? What do you think is going to happen?
well, I think with Sophia taking over, you mean like taking over her over the body or over
Taking over the
what does
town.
that mean?
I think she's going to play a really big role.
I think the fact that the man in yellow came in as a meek young lady who doesn't look threatening at all. I don't think it's going to be like he's coming in to take over. It's coming in to manipulate. The man in yellow is coming in to sow to some dissent and to weave in and out in a very passive voice, not in an aggressive manner.
Mhm.
I think it's going to be manipulation of Kenny potentially.
Mhm.
Kenny will that'll draw a rift between him and Boyd, and if Boyd starts to falter more and more, I mean, he's been kind of like, to quote Acosta, kind of like the king in
Mhm.
from Village, but he's kept people safe, and he sees that really in himself to keep people safe.
Okay.
But with that said, I think he's viewing Kenny also as a son to him now,
Mhm.
especially after the loss of Tian Chen, after the way that it happened. And if, say, this season we lose Ellis, and then the relationship with Kenny falls apart more and more, or falls out. Even though Kenny's now back to being a deputy,
Mhm.
and it seems like that bond is regrowing, I can see her coming in and influencing, manipulating Kenny. And if that were to happen, I feel like it's the downfall for Boyd, and it's essentially the fall of the village,
Mhm.
and sowing more discord, and the feeding into this is where they tear themselves apart
Mhm.
storyline.
Okay, I like that. So your theory is it's not actually going to be a takeover in the sense of something aggressive, large. It's going to be insidious. It's going to be small and slow.
Hmm.
Okay, I like that. Well, if you've made it this far, thank you so much. Please share what your theories are. Did we miss any big theories on Reddit that we should talk about next time?
And comment on ours, please. Like, we're throwing stuff out there. We're watching the show just like you all, and we're building our theories, and a lot of it is just literally our own thoughts. We are looking at the Reddits, we're looking at other videos, and taking some of that into account, but a lot of stuff is more or less just us just kind of riffing and just talking and seeing what comes out, what our observations are.
So please interact. This is what's fun about what we're doing here, is that we're part of this bigger community that gets excited about these shows. So we want to hear from you. So for next episode, check us out on YouTube under Cely Los, Out of Frame. We'll drop a reaction video on Monday, as well as our real-time review. And then similar to this the following week, you'll get that midweek chisme of what we found on Reddit, and then dive into how they play into the theories that we have as well. Until next time, I'm Cely.
And I'm Los.
And we'll see you out of frame.